The long and twisted saga of Vijay Mallya, once hailed as the king of good times, has taken another sharp turn, this time ignited by a fellow industrialist. Harsh Goenka, the chairman of the RPG group, recently took to social media with a question that has since echoed across India's digital landscape. He asked why Mallya continues to be treated as a political punching bag. Goenka's argument was direct and provocative. While Mallya did default on his loans, the banks have reportedly settled all their dues, recovering an amount that exceeds the principal. This public defense from a prominent business leader has thrown a new spotlight on a case that many thought had settled into a predictable rhythm of legal battles and political rhetoric. Goenka's intervention wasn't just a fleeting comment. It was a calculated call for what he termed fairness. He pointed out a perceived hypocrisy in the system, suggesting that there are far bigger defaulters who have negotiated massive write-offs, or haircuts as they are known in financial circles, with the very same banks, yet they seem to walk away without the same level of public condemnation. By framing the issue this way, Goenka challenged the popular narrative. He urged the consortium of banks involved to come forward and officially clarify whether any of Mallya's financial obligations remain outstanding, essentially putting the onus on the lenders to either validate or debunk his claim. This unexpected defense from a peer has completely reframed the public conversation, shifting it from a simple story of a fugitive businessman to a more complex debate about justice and financial accountability in India. It forces us to look beyond the headlines and ask whether the pursuit of Mallya is still about recovering money, or if it has morphed into a symbolic and perhaps political crusade. Goenka's words have provided Mallya with a powerful new ally in the court of public opinion, a development that complicates the government's long-standing position and the media's portrayal of him as the ultimate corporate villain who fled the country. The timing of this statement is crucial, coming at a time when the legal proceedings against Mallya have been dragging on for years. His extradition from the United Kingdom has been a slow-moving, intricate process filled with appeals and legal roadblocks. Goenka's support acts as a fresh narrative injection, compelling everyone, from ordinary citizens to policymakers, to re-evaluate the core issues at stake. Is the primary goal the recovery of public money? Or is it to make an example out of one high-profile individual, regardless of whether the financial losses have been recouped? The debate is no longer just about Mallya. It's about the very principles of our banking and justice systems. At the heart of this renewed debate are the numbers, and they tell a story that is far from straightforward. Vijay Mallya, seizing on Harsh Goenka's public support, quickly amplified the claim that he has more than settled his accounts. According to Mallya, the banks have recovered a staggering 14,100 crore rupees from the sale of his assets. This figure is significant because it stands in stark contrast to the original judgment debt issued by the Debt Recovery Tribunal, which was approximately 6,203 crore rupees. Even when compared to the widely cited total default figure of around 9,000 crore rupees, the recovered amount appears to be substantially higher, lending weight to his argument. Mallya's camp argues that these figures fundamentally change the entire basis of the case against him. He claims that the Union Finance Ministry itself has confirmed in writing that the banks have received these funds. If the lenders have been repaid more than double their principal loan amount, as he asserts, then what is the financial crime? This is the central pillar of his new defense. He is no longer just fighting the charges. He is actively claiming to be a victim of blatant discrimination, suggesting that the continued pursuit is driven by factors other than genuine financial loss to the public exchequer. This narrative of over-recovery is a powerful tool to reshape public perception. However, the numbers, while compelling, don't exist in a vacuum. The original loan default triggered a massive crisis of confidence and exposed serious flaws in the lending practices of major Indian banks. The 9,000 crore rupees figure often quoted includes not just the principal amount borrowed for his now defunct Kingfisher Airlines, but also the accumulated interest over several years. Critics argue that simply recovering the money, even if it is more than the principal, doesn't erase the years of effort, legal costs, and the systemic shock that the default caused. The recovery process itself was a long and arduous one, involving the seizure and auction of assets by the Enforcement Directorate, This discrepancy between the amount owed and the amount recovered forms the crux of the current dispute. For Mallya and his supporters, the math is simple. The debt is cleared and then some. For his detractors and the government agencies, the recovery is merely one part of the story. They emphasize that the funds were not willingly repaid, but were forcibly recovered through legal action after he had already fled the country. This context is critical. The debate over the numbers, therefore, becomes a proxy war for the larger moral and legal questions surrounding Mallya's conduct and the consequences of his actions on India's financial system. Despite the claims of full financial recovery, the calls for Vijay Mallya to return to India and face the justice system remain as loud as ever. This is because, for many, the issue was never just about the money. It has always been about accountability and the rule of law. The core argument is that repaying a loan, especially when forced to do so by law enforcement, does not automatically absolve an individual of the criminal charges associated with how that loan was obtained in the first place. The anger persists because Mallya is accused of committing fraud and deliberately misleading banks to secure funds, which are serious criminal offenses independent of the final repayment status. The legal charges against him go far beyond a simple civil case of loan default. The Central Bureau of Investigation and the Enforcement Directorate have built a case centered on allegations of conspiracy and money laundering. A key part of their investigation focuses on a 900 crore rupees loan from IDBI Bank, which they allege was granted improperly and then diverted for purposes other than what was stated. These are not just procedural errors, they are accusations of intentional deceit. From this perspective, the subsequent recovery of funds doesn't change the fact that a crime was allegedly committed at the time the loan was processed and disbursed. Furthermore, Mallya's departure from India in March 2016, just as banks were closing in on him, is seen by many as an admission of guilt, an act of a fugitive fleeing justice rather than a businessman facing financial difficulties. This act of leaving the country has become a symbol of elite impunity, feeding a public perception that the rich and powerful can operate by a different set of rules. The relentless pursuit of his extradition is therefore seen as a necessary step to restore faith in the principle that all citizens, regardless of their wealth or influence, are equal before the law. Bringing him back to stand trial is, for many, a matter of national pride and legal integrity. This is why the public reaction remains so sharply divided. For those who support Goenka's view, the financial closure should be the end of the matter. But for a large section of the public and for the investigative agencies, the drama is far from over. They argue that allowing Mallya to walk free simply because the money has been recovered would set a dangerous precedent. It would send a message that powerful individuals can commit financial fraud, and as long as they eventually pay back the money or have it seized from them, they can escape criminal consequences. The demand for his return is rooted in a desire to see the legal process through to its conclusion, whatever the verdict may be. The recent statements by Harsh Goenka and Vijay Mallya have successfully split public opinion right down the middle, transforming social media platforms into modern-day courtrooms where everyone is a judge. On one side, a growing number of people are echoing Goenka's call for fairness. They argue that if the banks have indeed been made whole and have in fact received more than they were owed, then the continued pursuit of Mallya seems vindictive. This group points to the bigger picture of corporate debt in India, where massive loans are written off for other companies with little public outcry, suggesting that Mallya is being singled out for political reasons. On the other side of the digital divide, the criticism against both Mallya and his supporter Goenka is fierce and unrelenting. This camp vehemently argues that the issue transcends finances. For them, Mallya's return to India is a non-negotiable matter of principle. They see his flight from the country as an affront to the nation's legal system and believe that celebrating the recovery of money misses the point entirely. The core issue, they insist, is the alleged criminality involved in securing the loans. The sentiment is clear. Justice cannot be bought, and returning money does not erase the alleged crime of fraud. This polarization leaves us with a series of profound and uncomfortable questions that strike at the heart of our understanding of justice. Is it truly fair for Vijay Mallya to face continued criticism and legal action if the financial debt that started it all has been fully settled? Does the recovery of money, even in excess of the original loan, negate the criminal intent that the investigative agencies allege? This is not just a legal question, but a moral one. It forces us to weigh the importance of financial restitution against the need for criminal accountability, and there is no easy consensus on which should take precedence in this case. Ultimately, the Mallya saga pushes us to confront a critical dilemma. Should the legal cases against him be dropped now that the financial chapter is seemingly closed? Or does the principle of facing the judicial process trump all other considerations? Dropping the case could be seen as a pragmatic resolution, but it might also be interpreted as a victory for impunity. Continuing the pursuit ensures that the legal system's authority is upheld, but it risks being seen as a personal vendetta if the primary financial grievance has been addressed. As the debate rages on, the final verdict on Mallya's legacy and on India's approach to corporate accountability remains unwritten.